Hi, welcome to High Road to You. This is Mark Stouffer. And I was sharing some information that was really helpful to somebody that's going into business. And, I spend a lot of time in the marketing industry. And I think that anybody that is an owner of business or is trying to sell a product and or a service, who is an entrepreneur, who's thinking about being an entrepreneur, what's very disheartening for me is to see that there's a lot of side hustles being sold into the marketplace. And, all the AI agents and things that I'm seeing, it's disheartening because there's a flood of people that enter into these markets. And, I think about Toro, during COVID, it was great. People were, buying up fleets of cars that they would be renting out. And now they're stuck with fleets of cars that are sitting in, storage yards, or where do you park these when they're not out on the road being used by clients, right? So you have to know that the industry is sustainable. It's harder and harder today to figure that out because AI is disrupting so many industries. So there's this massive spike of interest, and then it's a crash, right? And so what I would propose to you is that there's a way to enter any endeavor, any business endeavor, with a calculated approach. Like, you think about a franchise. A franchise has to disclose, all the franchises and what they make. It's open book, complete transparency. Because back in the day, people that bought into a franchise, the franchise or would not support them or even just disappear. And then all these franchisees were stuck kind of holding on to these investments. It could be brick and mortar. It could be, all of these different inventory type of businesses where, they got left holding the bag. And, the regulations came in to make sure that didn't happen to people. And I propose that should be across the board. I think multi-level, everything you hear about should be evaluated. What I see a lot of times is that these heavy, hardcore marketing companies, they bring people in with these massive hooks, but they don't have the foundation that they'll highlight just the top tier people that have figured something out with, whatever they're promoting or marketing. And they keep, replaying those success stories over and over and over. But, let's just say that there's a dozen people that they've done quite well, but then that industry gets flooded, and then the thousands of other people that have entered it, bought into the system, aren't doing well at all. And, they might say we have, hundreds of thousands of members and all this kind of stuff. And here's all these people these success stories, but then they're replayed over and over. So people have this mindset that I'm going to be, that top tier. But then in my industry, for example, I was in the branding industry, promotional merchandise. I was shipping containers of logoed merchandise over for clients. And I figured out ways to rise above the competition. But what hurt me was that the people that were my competitors, it was a flooded industry. There was, clients that said, there's hundreds of vendors pounding the door down to take your place if, as a preferred vendor. And that's just the nature of what the industry I was in. But what I did is I separated myself, and that's what I want to explain to you. I want to explain how you separate yourself from that type of a situation. And so I hope that my story will resonate with you if you're in business, or if you're thinking about going into business, or you're evaluating potential business opportunities. And that is that everything that you should do should be measurable. So I'm going to show you this. It's basically, they talk about funnels, you talk about, sending your product or service message out to an audience, and then you end up with a funnel. And I always think of a funnel as vertical walls. And this is why this is so important. When I was doing marketing campaigns in the branding merchandise industry, I went after a pre-qualified list. I went after the government agencies. I went after prime contractors to the federal government. I went after, huge companies that had huge budgets. And I knew that I could basically help them create marketing campaigns that were measurable. So my reputation preceded me in that regard. And so I would read the trade publications from cover to cover and read success stories and all of these different marketing gurus that were creating measurable campaigns for companies. And I thought, well, that's not rocket science. So I would share those case histories with my clients in the area of new product or service launch for their company, or a new safety program, or some type of employee morale program. And sometimes that would involve their multi-million-dollar fitness centers and recruiting new talent and keeping a major company culture and improving company, the employee morale. And so it had to be measurable, right? And then when they were sharing that information and all the indicators that said, this investment of, this $200,000 blanket PO that we allocated to you as a preferred vendor generated X, and then I could share that, and I would really have to pull that information from them. So I say this is, no matter what business endeavor you get involved with, this is really important. Number one, you have to go after a pre-qualified audience. Okay, so I'm going to give you this example. I'm going to say that there was 7,642 pre-qualified clients. That's your list. The most important aspect of any marketing campaign, number one, is your list. All right. You don't want to go after small companies that don't have a budget for your product and or service. You want to go after a pre-qualified list. The clients I went after had, $1 million budgets, and they were spreading that out throughout their, vendor list, if you will. So now this is the other thing too. Number two is it has to be measurable. I talked about that. Okay. So your list, number one, is a pre-qualified. Pre-qualified is the key word here. Number two, it's measurable. And number three, you want to reach to 100% capacity. And that's the balance of your marketing and then your operations. All right. I acquired clients like Cisco, and they were excited to work with me, but this is what happened. I didn't have a warehouse. I didn't have a fulfillment center. I didn't have, the infrastructure to support that level of business. I did company stores and I did small level fulfillment centers, but it wasn't enough. I wasn't big enough. I didn't have a big enough, I was in a 1,300 square foot office space. And I was trying to find somebody to co-op with as far as if they had a warehouse that we could bring in a production line and store the merchandise that we were branding, and how we would send that out to all their locations if they were doing trade shows from West Coast to East Coast. You understand that there was so much more involved in what their expectations were, or with the companies they had currently been working with that had those capabilities, and I did not. So that was a lesson learned. That was a strong lesson to learn. So anyway, so that's where we're at. So number one, you have to create that list. Okay, that's number one. It's a pre-qualified list. Okay, so if I'm in the pet care industry, I look at my location and I say, okay, within a 10-mile radius, who owns a dog? Okay, and then who makes a certain amount of money? And that's my list. And I focus direct response marketing campaign to that list. That's what it is. It's that simple. Okay, I can do billboards, I can do full page ads, but still, you're reaching a demographic of people that have no interest in your product and or service. So why spend the money? So in that regard, when you have this list and it's measurable, and then your ultimate goal is to reach full capacity. Okay, so think about In-N-Out Burger. When they, build out a location, they know that when they open the doors, they have a line. And at the end of the day, have to put that they have to stop traffic and say, we're closing. This is the last car we're going to serve. That's what you're trying to do. You want to be the In-N-Out Burger of your industry. So that's the ultimate goal. And in doing that, you have this funnel is a vertical line, right? You're going to test, you're going to measure, you're going to test. Now, I saw a Krispy Kreme donut shop open up in Nevada, northern Nevada, and there was a line for 2 hours. The same thing happened with Chick-fil-A. I wouldn't wait in a line that long to buy donuts or chicken sandwich, but some people, they do, and so that's marketing in and of itself. So then they have that. Is it sustainable? Well, you see that day in and day out, and with In-N-Out Burger, I think that's a perfect example of the balance of marketing. Let's say they don't market. Their marketing is just the location, and it's off a freeway. And as soon as they open, there's always a line, right? That's organic growth. That is just word of mouth. And so that's ultimately what every business would desire, right? So if this list is 7,642 per pre-qualified list, your capacity to fulfill is the most important thing. That's the balance. And so what I'd say is if In-N-Out Burger can serve 1,000 people a day, okay, that's that line. This is your funnel. This is a vertical wall. There's no sales involved. I try to eliminate sales completely. I hate sales. I don't even want people on the phone trying to convince somebody to buy a product and or service. I want the reputation or the brand to precede itself, so that you send out the marketing. If you do have a marketing investment, it's an investment, because if you spend $1,000 in marketing, you want, well, what's your return on investment? At what point did you break even? Did you break even the first day? Did you break even on the second day, the first week, the first month, a month and a half? You have to be able to measure. That is so critical, because you're measuring. You don't throw money out to anything if you can't measure it. Okay, that's what these side hustle companies want to sell you, just this dream of look at these people that have done so well, and then you say, okay, well, show me the analytics, the measurements of everybody involved. As you're buying into it, it should be transparent like a franchise, and it's not. During the 2008 crisis, I literally wrote to the president, and I said there should be rules and regulations in this regard, because people are being taken advantage of, and they're desperate. And that's when they take advantage of people the most. Perfect example, I went to a real estate seminar after the crash, and I thought, well, this is a great time to buy into real estate, because the value of some of my real estate went from 1.2 to 300,000, and I was able to buy my own house back at 300,000 in a short sale, and ultimately through a private money investor. And so what happened was is that I went to a seminar, everything I would need to learn and understand, and then I went to the seminar, and at the end of the weekend, I stood up, I said, I got this manual, and I got all these reams of papers, and I said, I came in here to learn everything I need to know, because that's what I was sold on. I stood up, and I addressed the speaker, and I addressed the other people in the room, and I said, I don't know about everybody else, but I have more questions now than I had before I came in here on the first day. And I feel like I spent 2 days in an infomercial for you to sell me on another package to be in the field with somebody for $27,000. And I said, I'm really, really quite disappointed. And, I flustered everybody up on stage and who was putting on the seminar, and they took a break, and I was out in the lobby, and I said, look, if anybody's going to buy this, here's my card. I was handing my card out, and I said, I want to keep in touch. I want to build this network. I want to understand who's going to take action. But personally, I want my money back. I feel like we've been sold into this infomercial, and they're pumping us up and doing all this rah-rah stuff. And then, we're now being told that if we want to go to the next level, we haven't even entered the first level. So the bottom line is that it was a play. And I was approached by the people that put this seminar on. They said, hey, you don't want to, kill the dream of da-da-da. And I said, look, I think we should all have the opportunity to execute on what you've taught us over 2 days, to just, get a feel for how this all plays out. But what you're selling us is a $27,000 program. I did run into a gal in part of our network. We all, kind of got together. They didn't want us to even passing our cards out, which was a huge indicator that it just was disheartening. And I ran into one of the gals that, a year later, and she says it was like, maybe a year or 2.5 later. And she said, she bought it. Hey, I ran it. I said, how did it work out? She says, I'm just $27,000 more in debt. And that's the way it is out there in the world today, because people are desperate and industries are getting disrupted. So what I'm proposing is this formula right here will protect you from a lot of that. And don't ever feel intimidated, when some salesperson is just, you got to sign up, it's hardcore sales tactics, and you can't fall prey to that. And my proposal is you got to ask these questions. If you were going to buy a franchise, you would want to see an open book. You would want to give it to, a franchise consultant who can evaluate it. Score.org is a great resource. It's a valuable resource. And so that's what I'm saying to you is that, this is marketing fundamentals right here. Marketing 101. Number one, you have to have a pre-qualified list. You got to know exactly what that looks like before you invest or get started. The ultimate goal is create these vertical walls. And the way these are vertical is if you know that you can serve 1,000 clients, you might say, I can only serve 100 clients. So this, this number depends on your ability to meet the demand, to fulfill, the response rate that, people are coming in and they're saying, I'm buying, I'm interested, right? And hopefully that's an online process. Hopefully that doesn't take up too much of your time, because if it does, then you're the salesperson. This is where most of the waste comes in. Because let's say you have 1,000 people that are interested, and then they go into this funnel and it funnels down to 10. That's a lot of wasted time, between the marketing, and then it goes into sales. And you could see you want to eliminate this time right here, this sales time from here to here, and the further down this goes, the more time and energy it takes for you. So your cost per acquisition of a new client could be, thousands of dollars by the time it gets here, and it's costing you money to do business, right? You got to know that. What I want to say, okay, if I have 7,000, 642 pre-qualified people that I know I can serve and help and can benefit from my product and or service, I want to say that, maybe 1,000, 10 people, and I have a wait list. So I can say, I can be more selective about the people I actually work with, okay? I can be more selective about the people that I hire to help me serve these clients right here. Okay, there's allows you to be selective. So if you're calculated and you can measure the cost per acquisition, then you could be selective about even the clients that you just rub you the wrong way, and that demand more than what your offer is announcing in your marketing campaign, and have unrealistic expectations. So you can then say, I'm so sorry, and send them on their way, in a very soft, diplomatic way. But the bottom line is, some people that, they're just too difficult to navigate, and there's a personality conflict, there's just misunderstandings, or whatever the case may be. So that's where you really want to play, is in this arena right here. You have a vertical wall, you have more clients that are coming in that basically you can't serve, so you have to have either a wait list, or you have to let them know that you're at full capacity, which happens, which is like In-N-Out Burger saying, I'm sorry, we're full, we can't serve any more people, it's the end of our day, and we want to go home to our families. And so people have to turn around and leave, right? Or they come and they say, look, the line is 2 hours and I'm not willing to wait. And people understand that, right? And so with that, that's how it works out. So you want to basically have, one, a pre-qualified list. Number two, it's measurable. You're going to test. Some people might have to, your business, you have to test and measure. Don't do anything unless you can test. And then you measure. And then you test, and then you get the traction. You go scale. It's time to scale. But in my opinion, you want to eliminate all the sales involved for whatever product or service you're introducing into the marketplace. And that's my strongest suggestion, so that you don't get taken advantage of by all of these gurus and business consultants and side hustles. And it is truly disheartening. And when I keep seeing the same success story repackaged over and over and over, and then they keep acquiring more and more clients to buy into their program, like this real estate experience that I had, I got my money back. I was extremely upset. I saw it for what it was, and I knew they were literally taking advantage of people, and most people would not do well to succeed. And that's the sad truth about it. We have to be very, very cautious, especially in the world today, when industries are getting disrupted by AI, and they're saying the AI is the solution, and everybody's going to buy into these, agency type things to sell, AI solutions. and it gets flooded, and then I'm getting bombarded by, email and all kinds of marketing that, this is the company I should work with for whatever reason. I'll say this too, I want to end the note on this. When I would go to international trade show in my industry, I would just go to every single vendor and I say, show me what's new and unique. Show me something that's innovative. And I would walk away with a handful of stuff. My competitors would walk out with bags and bags of stuff. And I can't even imagine what their house looked like, their office, or, most of us worked out of our house. But I can't imagine what their, how they would navigate all this stuff. And I'll tell you, my clients would be so thankful that I didn't show them another mug, or show them another pen. They have 100 pens in their pen caddy on their desk, and I'm like, hey, check out this new pen. It just didn't resonate with anybody. It's like, why would I want to have another pen? And so I was thankful that I had that mindset. It wasn't just that. I said, let's test this out and see what, when you send it out to your employees, they jump through hoops to get these things that they said, wow, this I've never seen, like, how do I get another one? And then they would buy, 1,000 more or 10,000 more. And pretty soon it's like, hey, why don't we bring a container of those? And so you have to understand that that's the process, and it takes a little patience, but I'm saying that you can do it. So, with that, I hope this reaches your heart and your mind. And I know that it's hard. You just want to rush into things and just, hope that it works. And I would say, don't do that. It doesn't generally end well, and it causes a lot of frustration, and it's preventable and avoidable. And not just in your personal life, not just in your business life, but it affects everything else in your life. So you have to be as calculated as you possibly can be in the context of evaluating an opportunity, and look at the marketing, ask them what the results are, test it on a small scale before you just dive into something. If I sent a direct marketing campaign out to 7,642 pre-qualified people, and then that response came back and say it's 44%. Some of my campaigns were coming back with that kind of response rate. I would upset a lot of people. It would overwhelm me to navigate that kind of a response rate, because I can't meet the demands of all those people that are interested in doing business with me. It's just like if I have a pet facility, I can only handle 110 dogs. I can't market to 1,000 people and then get a response rate like I would expect, and then turn everybody away, or most people away. It just wouldn't be fair to them. It wouldn't be fair to us or our employees, and it's the trickle effect of just stress. So when you know that you're in balance, is that you have marketing, then you have operations, your facility. Like if it's a restaurant, you have 100 tables, then you can only fill 100 tables, right, throughout the day. So then you have the service. How many people do you have to have on the floor to service that full capacity from the time you open the doors to the time you close doors? So that if you have to have 12 people, what if you only have 6? What if you only have 4, right? And then you can't fill 100 tables. You're going to have to say to people, we're short-staffed, we're overcommitted, and you might suggest that they, if they want to wait for a couple hours until the table opens, that's great. But suggest that they call in earlier the next time, right? I don't know, reserve a table sooner in advance or whatnot, if that's a possibility. But you understand what I'm trying to say. It's a very calculated, measurable approach to have balance. And this is the other thing. If you don't have balance with your marketing, your operations, and service, it really affects your company culture. That's like eating glass. Elon Musk talks about that a lot. To scale and navigate that kind of demand, it really is very, very stressful. So I propose that you only release marketing to the amount of people that you can actually serve and enjoy the journey and have the balance in that capacity, and then hope that it is sustainable. Ultimately, I crossed out marketing. Eventually you don't market, right? Because you want that organic growth, and then you measure that every month over month, quarter over quarter, year over year, and then you say, all right, we're still in demand, or our industry is being disrupted and we know why. What do we need to do? Do we need to pivot and move into another sector, another industry, or do we, raise the bar on what our services and our products, can fulfill? And hopefully the demand is still there, and that can be tested, that can be measured, tested, measured, and then scale based on, real numbers. Right. So I hope this reaches your heart and your mind. And I know it is simple, but it can be, complicated if you're not going to be patient with it. And with that, I hope this message finds you well. Thank you for watching High Road to You content. And this is where you take action. Nothing happens without action. Please share your story on how you incorporated nutrition, physical and social activity, how you incorporated accountability in your life, how you didn't ignore, you didn't deny, you didn't blame, but you pivoted through a difficult challenge in your life. And how did you build that foundation to overcome and thrive? And I hope this content allows you to enjoy the journey of that, right? That would be the biggest blessing for me. Share your story, share your milestones, encourage and inspire others. And with that, I wish you well.